I'm concerned with how many of you have been sleeping over this issue with this big nuclear plant in Ukraine.
Hey everyone, I want to go ahead and address this video here and do it in the most respectful way possible. There are a lot of people asking questions about what's going on at the Zaporizhzhia plant, and this video is actually the perfect opportunity to address those questions.
If this nuclear plant goes critical.
So I see where he was getting at when he was saying the word critical. Most people think of the word critical as being something really bad. But in the context of nuclear power, every single nuclear power plant on Earth goes critical every day. It even goes supercritical all the time. All critical means is that it's running at steady state. Supercritical just means that power is going up. And this is something that I've talked to the creator about and he understands now.
It would be like Chernobyl on steroids.
The claim that this is Chernobyl on steroids is definitely inaccurate. I've mentioned this before in this video here, that Chernobyl is way different than the Zaporizhzhia plant. It didn't have a containment to keep in any radionuclides that were released. It was also inherently unsafe and had positive feedback loops that caused a large explosion to rupture the building it was in. This does not exist at Zaporizhzhia. When you're talking about order of magnitude, it would probably be less than Fukushima, which thankfully did not kill anyone due to radiation.
And it would be very, very hard to respond to it in the same way we did with Chernobyl, because there's a major war going on everywhere here.
That's pretty accurate. They are in a war zone, and responding to a nuclear plant accident is complicated. I've mentioned in the past that bombs and bullets are always more dangerous than betas and gammas. For this reason, if there was a nuclear plant accident at Zaporizhzhia, there would likely be a shelter-in-place order given instead of an evacuation. If you're evacuating, you're putting a lot of people into harm's way. And sheltering in place is actually a pretty good way to reduce people's dose without putting them in harm's way. This was actually one of the lessons learned from Fukushima, since there was a lot of harm done by doing an evacuation.
It won't just be limited to Ukraine. Large swaths, whole countries in Europe will be irradiated.
Saying that this is going to cover large swaths of land in many countries is actually not very accurate. I've actually done the modeling myself for this specific nuclear plant in severe accidents, and the accident is really maintained to the local area, even in pretty severe conditions. That's because this thing has a containment over it to keep those radionuclides inside. And that containment is 1.2 meters thick at its thinnest. It would take intent and deliberate action to damage that containment. And we currently have no reason to believe that that is anybody's intent. And even with the damage containment, this is nowhere near what Chernobyl was like.
For a very long time, at least decades, uninhabitable.
So the claim that nuclear plant accidents like this can cause large areas to be uninhabitable is a very common myth. As many of you might know, Fukushima did cause a fairly decent-sized area to be relocated pretty much permanently. But there's been a lot of debate about this in the radiological emergency response community. We've learned that relocating permanently after a nuclear plant accident should not be taken lightly. And for the Fukushima accident, it probably shouldn't have happened. It was more harmful to permanently relocate those people than the radiation was. In fact, if those people from the Fukushima relocation area were relocated to Tokyo, their exposure from just the air pollution would have been more deadly than the radiation in the Fukushima area. Tokyo is actually very clean when it comes to the air quality. It's really the fear of radiation that drives that relocation.
They are currently handing out potassium iodide pills. Like these right here, okay? These are anti-radiation pills, basically Radaway, okay? Very bad for your health and not guaranteed to work, but better than not.
That is not accurate. Now, while potassium iodide can reduce your dose to radiation, calling them anti-radiation pills is not accurate. It's only applicable to certain conditions and to certain people and a specific isotope. It's something that we talk a lot about when we're doing our drills and exercises, that we need to make sure people understand that potassium iodide is not anti-radiation pills. Potassium iodide blocks your thyroid from being able to take up radioactive iodine. Imagine your thyroid is a parking lot. In this parking lot, iodine can park in. If your thyroid parking lot had free spaces, any iodine that comes into it will be able to park itself. If your thyroid was iodine deficient, radioiodine, the radioactive stuff, would be able to park itself in those free spaces and cause you a radiation dose. For those living very close to the nuclear plant or those emergency responders that might be responding to a nuclear plant accident, they might take potassium iodide, and that basically takes iodine that's not radioactive and parks it in all those parking spaces, so your thyroid parking lot is completely full, and then it can't accept any of the radioactive iodine.